This is a short talk about a historic road here in Mecklenburg County in Charlotte, Beatties Ford Road, which you may know about. So I'm going to zip over this and about that. And so first of all, let's just go here. When you look at the old Mouzon map, 1775, you don't see many Fords. You just see the road. You can see Charlotte, but you don't see Fords or roads going across there. That's the map from 1775. But when you get to Cornwallis's map, this is from 1787. Going ahead here. Okay, so there we go. You can see there's Charlotte town now, and you can see Beatties Ford up there, the top red arrow there, and you can see several fords across the river, roads across Tools Ford there, Cowan's Ford, Battle there. So where are these roads coming from? Well, they probably existed, they're just not on the Mouzon map. Because people were traveling across to the west, these Scots-Irish, and one of the earliest Scots-Irish was John Beatty, one of these, and he gets his name on the map. One of these Scots-Irish explorers, adventurers, and crossed over the Catawba River. And in this time, the date apparently was 1749, which is a long time before 1775. John Beatty is the person after whom Beatties Ford Road is named. So what I'm going to do is just going to zip up Beatties Ford Road in about 5 minutes, and we'll go through it. We're going geographically rather than historically, okay? So we're starting off close to Charlotte, where Trade Street ends at 5 points, right at Johnson C. Smith University, which is a historically black college and university, and I teach there part-time, which is one of my things I do. Right there at 5 points, that's where the college is. And it was once called Biddle Memorial Institute, and then it got some money and was renamed Johnson C. Smith, and this is Biddle Memorial Hall right there at the site of Johnson C. Smith, which came into existence right after the American Civil War, 1867. A little bit further up along the road, you keep going north, you get to the Excelsior Club, an African-American club, started in 1944. It's in a sad state, still there. I took this picture a couple of days ago. It's still there, but it's not functioning anymore. There's been efforts to try to preserve it as an important historical site here in Charlotte, but so far that hasn't happened. You go a little bit further up and you get to a very large African-American church called the United House of Prayer for All People. Bishop Daddy Grace was an important evangelist here in the 20th century, and this denomination is flourishing, and there's a very large church that they built there on Beatties Ford Road. Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, and so if you go on the left here, there is a patch of land. This is where the McIntyre farm was. The building is gone. It was there through to the 1940s, and but the building's gone. This was the site of the Battle of the Bees. You may have heard of the Battle of the Bees. The Battle of the Bees took place, note the date, October the 3rd, 1780. Just very quickly, what this was about was this fellow, Lord Cornwallis, and I'm not wearing my Lord Cornwallis outfit. I was asked to, but I'm not wearing that. But Lord Cornwallis came to Charlotte in September 1780, took over Charlotte and part of the British campaign, the Southern campaign, looking for supplies, didn't get supplies given to him, and sent off a foraging group who went up there to this site. Apparently there's about 450 British. You can go to the site. Well, what happened there at the McIntyre farm was some beehive, while the British were raiding the farm, some beehives overturned. Some patriots had heard about this, about 13 of them were around the area in the woods, started firing while these bees were buzzing all over the place. And the British thought that there was an enormous force of patriots and hightailed it all the way back to Charlotte. That's the story. And we've got two monuments there. One is on the left is the one from the Sons of the American Revolution, and the one on the right is from the Daughters of the American Revolution, and that's me. I gave a talk there a couple of weeks ago for the Daughters of the American Revolution. They asked me to do that. Lord Cornwallis, it feeds into this whole story about Lord Cornwallis and the hornet's nest. We can't find that old Cornwallis ever called this area Hornet's Nest. It's attributed to him, but this Hornet's Nest, Battle of the Bees, it's all part of the local legend. And it is interesting that there is some documentation. It's certainly on October the 3rd, note the date, October the 3rd was when he wrote this letter complaining about Mecklenburg County. And this is on that same date was the Battle of the Bees. A bit further up, you have, keep going, we'll be just a bit more. The Hopewell Presbyterian Church, one of the Seven Sisters, the original founding Scots-Irish churches in the area. And on the side of there, you can see a door right there where that arrow is. That's the door that the African-American community, when this is before the Civil War, would go in that door. And then there was an upstairs area where they would sit during the service. And that area is still there, though everything has changed, of course. And out in the graveyard there, that's made by Lewis Pfeiffer, an enslaved African-American person, the original entrance to the graveyard. And in the graveyard there of the church, we have many patriots and settlers, including William Lee Davidson, who was buried there after the Battle of Cowan's Ford. Across the road is Latter Plantation, the Latter, which was it's a great site, but it ran into some trouble a few years ago about an inappropriate program, and it lost its county funding, but there are efforts to reopen the Latter because it's really a great site. They used to have a farm there and do tours of that Catawba farm there on that farm on the Catawba. Keep going a little further. This sign sort of nestling in the trees here with Richard Barry, one of the early settlers here, helped found Hopewell Church. And thanks to Jeff Lawrence, who was the pastor at the Hopewell Church, he managed to preserve the house, at least the remains of the house. And it's sort of tucked in the middle of a housing estate. Fine. In the middle of this house is the house. There it is. And finishing up here, get to the end of the road, you have this sign, this monument by E.L. Baxter Davidson, who was very instrumental in preserving local history. He built rather sort of monuments which look rather similar. And this is a monument to the Battle of Cowan's Ford. And this is pretty much where the modern day Beatties Ford Road ends, because if you keep going, where the Beatties Ford Bridge was and where the ford was, it's now Lake Norman and it's all underwater. So that's just a short trip up a historic road. There's a lot of things along this road, and thank you very much. Well, we will now conclude this part of the Congress, and